Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. I'm making this video and calling it this title for a specific reason. It is not clickbait. It is because at the outset of this video, I want to answer the question, which is this: border runs are still possible. Unfortunately, yet again, in the sensationalism that swirls about the ether that is the internet, especially in the expat sector of Southeast Asia, especially as it pertains to visas and border running, we get a lot of nonsense out there that's sort of half-truths or mixed truths or oftentimes bad interpretation and analysis of policies that comes out to things being said. I've already seen it where people have said, based on the article I'm going to cite, by the way, I saw, I think on Facebook and some other places, things that were saying border running no longer possible, etc., etc. That's not what's going on here. In fact, if you do a deep drill down into the article I'm going to cite, which is where a lot of people are, it's the source material from whence a lot of folks are commenting on this. If you drill down, nothing's really changed here. What's been said, what's been stated is a reiteration of previously existing policy, which anybody that follows Thai immigration law and policy, which you chosen few like me who are in this bailiwick of following these things, I feel for you. You know, that is what it is. But if you have been following this, you would know what's been said on this topic. This isn't really all that big of news. It's being kind of spun up as major changes. I get it. We're going into high season. It's a good idea to let new folks especially know there are some rules regarding immigration. But the thing to take away from this video is border running is still possible. It's just not going to be like it was in the past for a lot of different reasons. It's one of the reasons I've been slowly moving into assisting folks with border run matters, because I've watched this trend for the last couple of years now where things have just gotten more and more, really from COVID. From COVID, that really is actually, now that I think about it, a watershed moment in sort of the history of border running. Because for the first time that I had ever heard of, borders were actually affirmatively zip-locked, hermetically sealed between Thailand and other places, which was kind of an anomaly. So the thing to take away from this video is to understand that the hyperbole out there about the notion that it's no longer possible to do border runs, that's not the case. It's not looking and going to look like what it looked like in the past. That said, I thought of making this video after reading a recent article from the Bangkok Post, bangkokpost.com. Article is titled, "Thai Immigration Steps Up Visa Run Scrutiny." So that's the important thing to understand here. They're increasing scrutiny. They're not saying you can't do this stuff anymore. Also, I think it's important before we proceed further to understand, I get that some may argue this is a semantic difference, but there is a difference in my mind between what I call a visa run and a border run. A traditional border run, I did them for the first roughly 18 months I was here because I had a multi-entry B visa back when those were much more common that I was using to maintain my work permit and things. I wasn't using an extension my first year and a half, and then on my last 90 days of my multi-entry B, I extended my status and I extended ever since, and then I went through all the other processes, became Thai, and now I don't worry about that stuff. But long story short, I've done border runs myself. A border run, in my mind, the definition of it is literally running to the border, crossing, being stamped into the place next door, and then crossing right back as instantaneously as is possible, usually within the same day or within a day of doing that, and then crossing back into the country and being stamped back in order to use further status. That, to my mind, is a border run. A visa run, now this is changing too, but in the past, to my mind, a visa run is going to another country outside of Thailand. This could also be analysis for any other country. Going to, in this case, the Thai embassy or consulate abroad, seeking a visa and then returning. That's a visa run as opposed to just crossing the border, being stamped out, being stamped back in. You actually get a visa and come back in. Now, with the new e-visa portal system that we're using, you're not actually interacting as much physically with embassies as in the past. That said, consular jurisdiction plays in a lot when it comes to visa matters, especially with the e-visa system. So physical presence within a given jurisdiction in order to interact with the Thai embassy or consulate is going to be required. And again, the underlying facts in a given case are going to dictate how long someone has to remain in a given country in order to conclude a visa run. Again, The analysis on that will be driven by underlying facts. That being said, what I'm trying to say is there's a difference between a border run and a visa run in my mind. We're specifically talking about border runs here. And again, it's changing. Let me quote further. Police Lieutenant General Panumat Bun Yaluk, the Immigration Bureau Chief, met on Wednesday with officials to discuss the policy aimed at preventing foreign nationals from misusing Thailand's visa exemptions for illegal activities. So that's the important point to be brought up in this. What they're talking about in this pertains to visa exemptions. And as we discussed in other videos, going back, I think it was 2017, maybe a little earlier, maybe 16, there was a ministerial decree. There was actually, and it was published in the Royal Gazette, that stipulated there were a minimum of 2 entries allowed to anyone per year on visa exemption status if they carried a passport that allowed for visa exemption. That's been policy for some time now. Now, depending on who you talk to and depending on the facts, you'll hear a lot of people say, hey, I've run in and out of Thailand 5 times this year. Nobody's bothered me. Again, depending on your situation, do you work abroad? Are you hubbed in Thailand? Again, they'll look at each individual's factual circumstances when allowing folks to come and go from Thailand. But the point I'm trying to make here is this policy has been in place for some time, which is there's 2 required entries. So basically, I hesitate to say guarantee because there's never a guaranteed entry to Thailand, but as close as you can get to that, the decree states everybody gets 2 exemption entries in each given calendar year. So that's the thing to understand. And that decree goes back years. It goes back to even before COVID. That said, quoting further, immigration authorities will now impose tighter scrutiny on foreigners who repeatedly enter and exit the country under the guise of tourism. So this is where, again, I want to be clear. There's all these headlines and things going around out there in the ether of the internet that border running is a thing of the past. It's not possible. Not true. They're just saying they're imposing heightened scrutiny and heightened scrutiny in furtherance to the rule regarding 2 visa exemption entries per year. Not border running across the board. This isn't an attack on border running per se. It's just an enforcement of the policy that's already been in existence for years. Quoting further, police data shows that many individuals have exploited the visa-free policy, which allows stays of up to 90 days per entry, to conduct what are known as quote-unquote visa runs, Police Major Chongron said. Quoting further, to close these loopholes, immigration checkpoints at airports and border crossings will now deny entry to travelers who make more than 2 visa runs without a valid justification. Again, 1, it's not that border running is not possible anymore. 2, it's not that you can't even do more than 2 a year. You just have to show cause. The decree that I previously was discussing stipulated you got 2 a year unless there was good reason to get more. So again, not impossible, but there is heightened scrutiny. We are going to see more attention being paid by immigration to these matters, and I think it's going to get increasingly difficult. As it discusses in that article, and I urge those who are watching this video, go check it out, immigration's telling people, look, if you're going to be here long term, you need to get into a non-immigrant status. You need to get into something, if you're going to live here, that allows you to live here. We don't want people living here on exemption status, on tourist status, in this sort of ostensibly temporary manner that in reality is permanent. That's what's bothering, if you will, the immigration apparatus at the moment. So the thing to take away from this video is 1, no, border running is not at an end. That said, there is heightened scrutiny. There is going to be more formalities associated with border running, I expect. I expect it will not be a guaranteed thing in the future that you can do it same day. I think that's going to be a big change moving forward. The idea of a same-day border run at one time was quite commonplace, as anybody who lived in Bangkok and Pattaya 10 years ago, 15 years ago could tell you. But again, times they are a-changing, the situation at the border being what it is with Cambodia. You know, that's the closest border to both Bangkok and Pattaya, which definitely I would say houses the most expats here in Thailand, generally speaking. Again, Malaysia, Myanmar, Laos, depending on circumstances, may be an option, but just the closure of the Thai-Cambodian border itself has already put a big crimp on many border runners, if you will, style. That being said, You know, I could see this evolving, but it should be understood that this is not a ban. It's still possible to do border runs. You just need to do it in kind of a different way than it was done in the past. For those who find themselves overwhelmed by all of this stuff, it might not be a terrible idea to contact a legal professional, gain some insight and guidance into how best to proceed.